Aloha from Hawaii and welcome to Course in Miracles, Workbook for Students, Lesson 10. Let's go back to Lesson 1, and I'm going to read the idea for the day, for each of the days that we've already covered, just to bring it back to our memory and so that we can see where we're headed to and how each one of these lessons is actually building on the previous lessons. Lesson 1 said, "Nothing I see in this room or on the street or from this window or in this place means anything." I'm just going to say in this room, but really it's talking about everything you see, whether it's something you see out the window, something you see around this room, or something you see in this place in Maui. Nothing I see in this room means anything. Why? Because I've given everything in this room all the meaning that it has for me. I do not understand anything I see in this room. These thoughts do not mean anything. They are like the things I see in this room. And we're going to see this again later on today in Lesson 10. These thoughts do not mean anything. They are like the things I see in this room. Lesson 5, I'm never upset for the reason I think. I am upset because I see something that's not there. What do I see? I see only the past. My mind is preoccupied with past thought. I see nothing as it is now. And that brings us to Lesson 10. My thoughts do not mean anything. This idea applies to all the thoughts of which you are aware or become aware in the practice period. The reason the idea is applicable to all of them is that they are not your real thoughts. We've made this distinction before and we'll do it again. You have no basis for comparison yet. When you do, you will have no doubt that what you once believed were your thoughts did not mean anything. This is the second time we've used this kind of idea. Remember, we used it, I think it was in Lesson 3, these thoughts do not mean anything. But now we're saying my thoughts. This time the idea is introduced with my thoughts instead of these thoughts, and no link is made overtly with the things around you. The emphasis is now on the lack of reality of what you think you think. This aspect of the correction process began with the idea that the thoughts of which you are aware are meaningless, outside rather than within, and then stressed their past rather than their present status. Now we are emphasizing that the presence of these thoughts means that you are not thinking. This is merely another way of repeating our earlier statement that your mind is really blank. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. As such, it is the prerequisite for vision. And that's what we're going for. We're going for vision. We think we see now, but the Course is telling us that really what we see is nothing. And that vision, real true vision, is possible. And that's what we want to get to the place where we can see. The Course calls it the vision of Christ. But anyway, this aspect of the correction process began with the idea that the thoughts of which you are aware are meaningless. They're outside rather than within, and then stress their past rather than their present status. Now we are emphasizing that the presence of these thoughts means that you are not thinking. This is merely another way of repeating our earlier statement that your mind is really blank. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. As such, it is the prerequisite provision. Close your eyes for these exercises and introduce them by repeating the idea for today quite slowly for yourself. The idea for today is my thoughts do not mean anything. So we have our eyes closed. Repeat the idea for today. These, my thoughts, do not mean anything. And then add, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. The exercises consist, as before, in searching your mind for all the thoughts that are available to you, without selection or judgment, and try to avoid classification of any kind. In fact, if you find it helpful to do so, you might imagine that you're watching an oddly assorted procession going by, which has little, if any, personal meaning to you. As each one crosses your mind, say, my thought about does not mean anything. Or my thought about that does not mean anything. And just put in the blank whatever thought crosses your mind. I was watching a show tonight, a meditation show that's popular on Netflix right now, and the person was talking about his teacher told him to imagine you're sitting on the side of a road and you're watching the cars go by, and those cars are your thoughts, and you're just watching them without judgment. Sometimes your mind may want to go out into the street and stop all the cars or chase after one of them. But really, we just want to watch them, to be the observer, to be the watchman. And you label them for this particular exercise as my thoughts about and whatever goes by. My grade in school does not mean anything. My thoughts about the political situation going on in our country do not mean anything. And so today's thought can obviously serve for any thought that distresses you at any time. And it may be you're feeling really distressed and those are the only thoughts that come to your mind right now. But just whatever they are, label them my thought about this thing that's stressing me does not mean anything. In addition, 5 practice periods are recommended. And this is what I was speaking to before, that it really helps majorly if you can follow these instructions. Even more than grasping the content is following these instructions. So when it's saying that if you get a distressing thought during the day, just stop right there and say my thought about this maybe embarrassing situation does not mean anything. But try to do the 5 practice periods. And it's really not that hard, but your ego won't want to do it. And sometimes I found it often helped me to like set a little timer or a watch or something, or with your smartphone, to go off to remind you. to do it 5 times, and they only take about a minute or so of mind searching. So it doesn't take very long, but 5 times today, decide that you're going to do these practices. And it's recommended that it's not recommended that this time period be extended, and it should be reduced to half a minute or less if you experience difficult. And remember, however, to repeat the idea slowly before applying it specifically, and also to add, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. And so I think it's important to point out here that the Course says you can reduce the amount of time to half a minute if you're feeling stressed. And I think that's really been a key for my spiritual growth. I started years ago meditating every day, and I still meditate every day. I don't think I've ever missed a day, but it's not because I said I'm going to meditate every day. I'm going to make it my spiritual practice or something. It's because I enjoy it and it doesn't stress me out. If I actually had to say, I'm going to do this meditation thing 20 minutes a day and got under a bunch of condemnation or whatever if I missed it, I know my personality, I would probably end up eventually not doing it. So when I first started meditating, I only meditated for a little bit of time that felt comfortable for me. And I think it was like 5 or 10 minutes. And I didn't, say I'm going to spend here an hour or 20 minutes. I just said, I'm just going to try to do this every day. And what caused me to lengthen the time was because I began to really get something out of it, a real sense of inner peace. And as I got better at it, I could get there quicker. And it became a place that I wanted to go to. And so, 5 minutes became 10 minutes, became 30 minutes to an hour. Sometimes I'll meditate for a couple hours and I don't even realize I've been meditating for a couple hours because I just love being in that space. And I think that's is one of the things I think that the Course is warning us about, is that you don't want to stress yourself out with this. You want it to be enjoyable, and you want it to be not like a discipline, but something that you want it to be more like a journey or an adventure. Or I kind of looked at it for myself as an experiment to see, is this really useful? Is this really something for me? And if not, I'll let it go. And it's been good for me. So if one day it isn't useful for me anymore, I'll let it go. But that was more than 10 years ago, and I'm still at it because I'm still finding it useful. And so good luck with yours, and send out peace, joy, and love to you. And I'll see you tomorrow. Mahalo.